Hey guys, and tonight we're diving headfirst into the truly wild side of Viking life, beyond the longships and the sagas. We're talking about dinner. Or rather, what was dinner when you were a Viking? Facing down a brutal winter with nothing but your wits and a profound, bone-deep hunger. Forget your organic kale and your artisanal sourdough. We're about to explore a culinary landscape so extreme, so utterly bizarre, and frankly, so dangerous, that your modern stomach might just stage a full-blown rebellion. You'll quickly realize that if you were a Viking, your chances of surviving the winter, let alone enjoying a meal, would be slim. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're listening, drop a comment with your location and local time. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You feel the gnawing emptiness in your gut, a constant low thrum that has become the soundtrack to your winter existence. The fresh bounty of summer and autumn, the plump berries, the rich game, the teeming fish, is a distant, almost mythical memory. Now, as the biting wind howls outside your longhouse, rattling the timbers and sifting fine snow through the cracks, your world shrinks to the immediate, desperate need for sustenance. This isn't about culinary preference, it's about survival, pure and unadulterated. And survival, you're about to discover, often demands a palate for the truly strange, and sometimes the downright dangerous. Imagine the return of a longship from a distant land. The air, usually filled with the scent of wood smoke and preserved food, now carries the faint, exciting aromas of foreign spices, unfamiliar grains, and perhaps even a hint of wine. These weren't daily staples, but they were precious commodities, acquired through daring voyages, shrewd bartering, or swift, brutal raids. You'd gather at the docks, eyes wide with curiosity, as the crew unloaded their treasures, each item a story of distant lands and perilous journeys. You might think, this is better than a trip to the grocery store? And you'd be absolutely right. Think about it. No supermarkets, no global supply chains, no refrigeration. Your ancestors, the Vikings, lived in a world where food was a constant struggle, a battle against spoilage, scarcity, and the relentless march of the seasons. They couldn't afford to be picky. If it offered calories, if it could be preserved, and if it didn't immediately kill you, it was on the menu. You might be accustomed to choosing between 20 different types of yogurt, but for a Viking, the choice was often between a handful of dried, fermented, or otherwise unappetizing options, or nothing at all. You can almost hear your inner foodie screaming. Where's the avocado toast? A common historical fact is that the Vikings established extensive trade networks across Europe and beyond, reaching as far as the Middle East and North America. They traded in furs, timber, walrus ivory, and slaves, but they also brought back a variety of goods, including foodstuffs. These trade routes were crucial for acquiring resources not available in their homeland, including certain types of food that added variety and, importantly, new flavors to their diet. The common historical fact you quickly grasp is that the primary driver behind the Vikings' unusual diet was environmental necessity. Living in harsh northern climates with long, dark winters and limited arable land meant that fresh food was available for only a short period each year. This forced them to become masters of preservation and to exploit every conceivable food source. No matter how unappealing or risky it might seem to modern sensibilities, their diet was a direct reflection of their environment, a testament to their adaptability. For a unique detail, did you know that archaeological digs in Viking settlements have uncovered evidence of exotic spices like pepper, cinnamon, and ginger? While these wouldn't have been consumed daily, they were highly prized and likely used sparingly in special dishes or for medicinal purposes. Imagine the shock and delight of tasting black pepper for the first time after a lifetime of bland, preserved foods. It's like discovering a whole new flavor dimension, but with significantly more effort to acquire. You can almost hear a Viking saying, "This tastes like victory." Now, for a unique detail, did you know that some Viking communities, particularly in Iceland and Greenland, would consume the stomach contents of reindeer or other hunted animals? While this might sound utterly repulsive, The partially digested plant matter within the stomach could provide essential vitamins and minerals that were otherwise scarce in their winter diet. Acting as a crude but effective nutritional supplement. Imagine the sheer desperation required to consider such a meal. Knowing that this might be your only source of certain vital nutrients, it's the ultimate nose-to-tail eating, taken to a whole new level. You might think. That's one way to get your greens. But you'd probably still pass. Academically, the historians still debate the precise impact of imported foodstuffs on the average Viking diet versus the diets of the elite. While chieftains and wealthy traders clearly had access to more exotic goods, the extent to which these items filtered down to the general population is less clear. Were spices and foreign grains purely luxury items? Or did they occasionally make their way into the common pot? You can almost hear the academic arguments. The evidence suggests limited diffusion. But even small quantities could have had a significant impact on morale. It's a debate with a spicy twist. Academically, historians still debate the precise extent to which certain dangerous foods were consumed regularly versus being emergency rations. For instance, while we know about fermented shark hackarl, was it a common staple or a last resort for the truly desperate? The line between a traditional delicacy and a survival food was often blurred, and the academic discussion continues to explore the nuances of this dietary spectrum. You can almost picture scholarly Vikings arguing over the dinner table. But is it truly a delicacy if it makes your eyes water? Raids, while often violent, also served as a means of acquiring food. When a Viking longship landed on a foreign shore, the primary goal might have been silver or slaves, but livestock, grain, and other provisions would also be seized. These freshly acquired foodstuffs provided a welcome, if temporary, respite from the monotony of preserved rations, and any surplus could be brought back home. It was a brutal form of grocery shopping, but effective. As the winter winds moan outside, you find yourself staring at a piece of dried fish, so hard it could chip a tooth. You remember the summer, when the rivers teemed with salmon, and the forest offered to plump berries. Those days feel like a dream now. This is reality, the tough, chewy, intensely salty, or pungently fermented fare that keeps the spark of life flickering within you. Your body, once accustomed to varied flavors and textures, has recalibrated. Hunger is the ultimate seasoning, capable of making even the most challenging food palatable. You recall the stories of raids on monasteries, not just for their gold and illuminated manuscripts, but for their well-stocked pantries. The monks, with their organized agriculture and careful storage, often had stores of grain, dried fruits, and even wine that would be a treasure trove to a hungry Viking crew. These were not just calories, they were a taste of a different, richer world. You watch your mother, her hands gnarled from years of work, meticulously preparing a meal. There's no waste. Every scrap of meat, every piece of bone, every last kernel of grain is utilized. The fat from slaughtered animals is rendered and stored, not just for cooking, but for fuel for lamps, for waterproofing, and for adding crucial calories to meager dishes. You recall the distinct, almost cloying scent of rendered fat, a smell that permeated the longhouse during the autumn, a promise of warmth and energy for the coming cold. Beyond the obvious, trade also brought in more subtle, but equally important, food items. Honey, a valuable sweetener and preservative, was often traded from regions with more abundant bee populations. Certain types of nuts or dried fruits, not native to Scandinavia, could also be acquired, providing concentrated energy and a welcome change in texture. These seemingly small additions could make a significant difference to both the nutritional content and the psychological well-being of a community facing a long winter. The children, bundled in furs by the fire, play quietly, their laughter a fragile sound in the vast silence of winter. They too understand the gravity of food. They've seen the lean faces, the hollow eyes of those who didn't prepare enough, or whose stores ran out too soon. They've learned early that the strange foods on the table are not a choice, but a necessity, a testament to the relentless struggle for survival. You can almost hear a modern child asking, "Can I get a Happy Meal instead?" You think about the sheer bravery and endurance required for these voyages, weeks or months at sea, battling storms and navigating unknown waters, all for the promise of plunder and trade. The exotic foods brought back were a tangible reward for their daring, a taste of the wider world that fueled their ambitions and their bodies. Consider the sheer lack of choice. In a world without global trade networks or advanced agricultural techniques, your diet was dictated by what could be hunted, fished, gathered, or grown locally. And crucially, what could be preserved through the long, dark months. If your region didn't have certain resources, you simply didn't eat them, or you risked perilous journeys to trade for them. This limited palate forced an extreme creativity in food preparation, transforming potentially dangerous or unappetizing raw materials into something that could sustain life. The psychological impact of these foreign foods was immense. They broke the monotony, offered new flavors, and provided a connection to distant, mysterious lands. A handful of exotic nuts, a pinch of a foreign spice, could spark conversation, fuel dreams of future voyages, and remind everyone that the world was vast and full of possibilities, even in the depths of winter. It was a taste of adventure. Literally, the concept of fresh food during winter is almost alien. The occasional rabbit snared, or a desperate fishing trip through a hole in the ice, provides a fleeting taste of something different. But these are rare luxuries. Your body has adapted. Your palate has recalibrated. The strong, pungent flavors of fermented and dried foods, once perhaps an acquired taste, are now simply the taste of life. You've learned to appreciate the dense chewiness of dried meat, the tangy bite of preserved dairy. It's a culinary journey you never asked for, but one you've embraced with the fierce determination of a survivor. The social aspect of these imported foods was also significant. Sharing a rare foreign spice or a piece of exotic dried fruit was an act of generosity and a display of status. It fostered camaraderie among the warriors who had acquired them, and offered a glimpse of the outside world to those who remained at home. These were not just commodities, they were stories, experiences, and connections to a larger world. You find yourself thinking about the sheer effort involved in preparing these foods. It wasn't just a matter of hanging a fish to dry, it was a communal endeavor. A monumental task that consumed weeks, sometimes months, of the warmer seasons. Every member of the family, and from the youngest child to the oldest elder, had a role to play. The women would meticulously clean and salt the fish. The men would construct the drying racks or dig the storage pits. It was a dance of survival, choreographed by the seasons, each step essential to the next. You can almost feel the ache in your own hands, the sting of the salt on your skin, the exhaustion that comes from working from dawn till dusk, knowing that your future depends on your diligence. As the winter winds continue their mournful song, you find a deep appreciation for the daring spirit of your ancestors. Their willingness to venture into the unknown, to trade and to raid, brought not only wealth, but also a taste of the exotic to their harsh northern lives. These foreign flavors, though rare, provided a vital spark of variety and a reminder of the world beyond their longhouse. As the long night descends once more, you pull your furs tighter, the fire casting dancing shadows on the walls of the longhouse. The wind howls outside, a mournful lament that echoes the emptiness of the landscape. But inside, there is a quiet resilience, a shared understanding that you are all in this together. The strange and sometimes dangerous foods, humble and unglamorous as they may be, are your shield against the relentless onslaught of winter. They are the silent heroes of your survival story, allowing you to dream of spring, of green fields, and of the return of the sun. You close your eyes, the scent of smoke and preserved food a comforting lullaby, and drift off, knowing that for tonight, you have endured. You close your eyes, the warmth of the longhouse fire a comforting presence. You are nourished not just by the local bounty, but by the distant echoes of trade and raid, by the surprising tastes of foreign lands. You drift off to sleep, knowing that the Viking spirit, fueled by both necessity and adventure, continues to endure. The gnawing hunger you felt in Chapter 1, that constant companion of winter, is the ultimate driver behind the truly bizarre and sometimes perilous culinary choices of the Vikings. It's not about being adventurous, it's about sheer, unadulterated desperation. When starvation looms, the definition of food expands dramatically, encompassing anything that might offer a single, precious calorie, regardless of taste, texture, or even inherent danger. The Longhouse, a sanctuary against the biting wind and perpetual twilight, is more than just a shelter for your body. It's the beating heart of your community. And food, in its preserved, unglamorous forms, is the very blood that flows through its veins. You've seen the sheer practicality of Viking food preservation, but now consider its profound social significance. Food wasn't merely fuel, it was a powerful social glue, a symbol of status, a tool for diplomacy, and a cornerstone of communal life. Imagine the stark reality of a failed harvest, a meager fishing season, or a particularly brutal winter that extends far beyond expectations. The carefully hoarded stores begin to dwindle, and the faces around the longhouse grow thinner, their eyes reflecting a primal fear. This is when the truly unpalatable, the seemingly inedible, becomes a lifeline. You're not just eating to live, you're eating to avoid a slow, agonizing death. You might think, I'd rather starve, but then your body screams otherwise. Imagine a feast, even a modest one, during the depths of winter. The longhouse, usually a place of quiet industry, transforms. The central fire roars, casting a warm, inviting glow. The air, typically heavy with the scent of smoke and dried provisions, is now enriched with the aroma of a special stew, perhaps made with a precious cut of smoked meat or a rare, foraged root. This isn't just about eating, it's about sharing, about reinforcing the bonds that hold your community together. You might think, this is like a potluck, but with higher stakes? And you'd be absolutely right. A common historical fact is that during periods of extreme scarcity, the Vikings, like many other ancient peoples, would resort to eating bark, particularly the inner bark of pine or birch trees. This bark bread was incredibly fibrous and difficult to digest, offering minimal nutritional value, but it could provide some bulk and stave off the worst pangs of hunger. It was a last resort, a desperate attempt to fill an empty stomach when all other options had vanished. Imagine chewing on wood, knowing this is all that stands between you and collapse. You can almost hear a modern chef saying, it has a rustic, woody note, but lacks chewiness. A common historical fact is that hospitality was a deeply ingrained value in Viking society. Offering food and drink to travelers, even strangers, was a sacred duty, reflecting not only generosity but also the host's status and wealth. A well-stocked larder, filled with a variety of preserved foods, was a clear sign of a prosperous household and a capable leader. You can imagine a chieftain proudly displaying his stores of aged cheese and smoked hams, knowing that each barrel and hanging slab represented his ability to provide for his people. For a unique detail, did you know that in some desperate times, Vikings might have consumed the blood of animals, either fresh or coagulated and mixed with other ingredients? Blood is incredibly rich in iron and protein, making it a valuable, albeit unusual, food source. It could be mixed with flour to make a type of blood pancake or added to stews to thicken and enrich them. This practice highlights the extreme resourcefulness born of necessity, ensuring that no part of a slaughtered animal went to waste. Imagine the metallic tang, the thick texture, knowing this was a vital, life-sustaining liquid. It's like a very, very intense protein shake, but without the fancy blender. For a unique detail, did you know that certain types of preserved foods might have been considered prestige items, reserved for special occasions or for gifts to important guests? For example, particularly well-aged or rare types of dried fish, or perhaps exceptionally rich bog butter, could have been seen as delicacies. These weren't just about calories, they were about flavor, texture, and the sheer effort involved in their creation and preservation. Imagine presenting a guest with a piece of perfectly cured meat, saying, "This isn't just sustenance, it's a statement." It's like bringing a vintage bottle of wine to a dinner party. But instead of wine, it's really old fish. The longhouse, a sanctuary against the biting wind and perpetual twilight, suddenly feels a little less isolated. You've explored the raw, desperate realities of the Viking diet, from fermented fish to foraged roots. But the Vikings were not simply isolated survivalists. They were also formidable traders and raiders. And these external ventures profoundly influenced their diet, bringing in exotic, and sometimes unexpected, foodstuffs that diversified their otherwise limited local fare. This is the story of trade, raids, and the surprising exotic bites that found their way to the Nordic table. Academically, historians still debate the precise role of specialized food preparation and distribution in establishing and maintaining social hierarchies within Viking communities. While chieftains clearly had more access to resources, the extent to which they controlled the production and rationing of preserved foods for the broader population is less clear. Was food distribution a top-down system, or was it more decentralized, with individual households managing their own stores? You can almost hear the academic arguments. The sagas describe feasts hosted by powerful jarls. Yes, but archaeological evidence shows widespread household-level storage. It's a debate about who held the keys to the pantry. Academically, historians still debate the precise cultural and ritualistic significance of consuming certain dangerous or unusual foods beyond mere survival. While necessity clearly drove many choices, was there also an element of demonstrating bravery, resilience, or even a spiritual connection to the animal world in consuming parts that others might discard? Was it purely pragmatic, or did it carry deeper meaning? You can almost hear the academic arguments. It was purely caloric efficiency. No, it was a symbolic act of mastery over nature. It's a debate with a bloody good point. Food was also a tool for diplomacy and alliance building. When chieftains met to discuss matters of war or peace, the sharing of food and drink was an essential part of the negotiations. A generous host, providing ample and varied provisions, could build trust and demonstrate his commitment to the alliance. Conversely, a stingy host might signal weakness or distrust. Every shared meal was a subtle negotiation, a silent language spoken through the clinking of drinking horns and the tearing of dried meat. The concept of dangerous foods for the Vikings wasn't always about poison. Sometimes, it was about the risk of improper preparation. Take the aforementioned fermented shark hakarl. If not processed correctly, the high levels of urea and trimethylamine oxide in the fresh shark meat can cause severe illness, resembling extreme drunkenness. The Vikings learned, through generations of trial and error, the precise methods and lengthy fermentation times required to render it safe for consumption. It was a culinary tightrope walk, where a single misstep could lead to agonizing consequences. You can almost picture a Viking saying, "Well, it didn't kill me this time. You remember the communal feast after a successful autumn hunt or a profitable trading voyage? Even though the fresh meat was soon gone, the preserved bounty would last. The long tables would groan under the weight of platters piled high with rehydrated dried fish, chunks of salted meat, thick slices of cheese, and bowls of berry paste. The atmosphere would be boisterous, filled with laughter, storytelling, and the clatter of eating utensils. It was a moment of collective celebration, a temporary reprieve from the constant struggle against the elements. You recall a story told by your grandfather of a winter so harsh that families were reduced to eating the leather from their shoes, boiling it down to create a meager, gelatinous broth. The thought makes your stomach clench, a visceral understanding of the depths of human desperation. This wasn't about taste or even nutrition. It was about the psychological comfort of putting something in your stomach. However unappetizing, the distribution of food within the longhouse was often a communal affair, particularly during the leanest months. While each family had its own stores, there was an unspoken understanding that no one would starve if others had plenty. The sharing of resources, especially in times of extreme hardship, was a fundamental aspect of their survival strategy. You'd see a neighbor quietly offering a piece of their dried fish to a family whose stores were running low, a gesture of solidarity that spoke volumes without a single word. The consumption of internal organs, often discarded in modern Western diets, was commonplace and crucial. Liver, kidneys, heart, and even brains were highly valued for their nutritional density. These organs, rich in vitamins and minerals, provided essential micronutrients that were scarce in other preserved foods. They were often eaten fresh immediately after a hunt or slaughter, or lightly preserved for short-term use. You remember the earthy, rich taste of fresh liver? A rare treat that felt like a burst of vitality after weeks of dried provisions. The preparation of food, even the monotonous winter meals, was often a shared activity. Women would gather around the hearth, grinding grain, soaking dried fish, and preparing the communal pot. This shared labor fostered camaraderie and allowed for the exchange of knowledge and techniques. You'd learn new ways to rehydrate stockfish or to make a particularly flavorful porridge. Lessons passed down through generations, strengthening the collective wisdom of the community. Even birds' eggs, if found in winter, would be consumed, sometimes even if they were slightly aged or frozen. The protein and fat content made them valuable, and the Vikings were adept at discerning what was safe to eat. Even when appearances were far from appetizing, it was a constant assessment of risk versus reward, where the reward was simply survival. You think about the role of food in ritual and belief. While not explicitly part of daily sustenance, certain preserved foods might have been used in offerings to the gods or spirits, particularly during the darkest days of winter, to ensure a bountiful spring harvest. The act of giving back a portion of their hard-won provisions was a way of honoring the forces that sustained them, a plea for continued favor. It's like leaving cookies out for Santa, but with more serious consequences if you forget. You think about the psychological toll of such a diet, the monotony, the often unpleasant textures and tastes, the constant reminder of scarcity. Yet, the Vikings endured. They developed a remarkable mental fortitude, a stoicism born of living on the edge. They understood that complaining wouldn't fill their bellies. Resourcefulness and resilience would. The social hierarchy was often reflected in the quality and quantity of food consumed. While everyone ate preserved foods, a chieftain's family might have access to more varied or higher quality cuts of smoked meat, or larger quantities of imported grains. These subtle differences reinforced their position at the top of the social ladder, demonstrating their ability to command resources and provide for their dependents. The knowledge of what was edible, what was dangerous, and how to prepare it safely was passed down orally, a vital part of their cultural heritage. Elders would teach the young which berries were poisonous, which roots could be consumed, and the intricate steps required to make fermented foods safe. This was not abstract learning, it was practical, life-saving education, ensuring the survival of the next generation. As the winter drags on, the shared meals become even more significant. They are not just about filling your stomach, they are about maintaining morale, about reminding everyone that they are part of something larger than themselves. The warmth of the fire, the comfort of shared food, the quiet presence of your community, these are the intangible ingredients that make survival possible. As the winter winds continue their mournful song outside, you find a strange comfort in the shared experience of this harsh diet. You are not alone in your consumption of these desperation's delicacies. Everyone in the Longhouse, indeed, everyone in your community is part of this collective act of survival. It binds you together, a silent understanding of the lengths to which humanity will go to endure. You reach for a piece of hard cheese, its familiar tang a comforting presence in your mouth. You look around the Longhouse, at the faces illuminated by the firelight. You see your family, your neighbors, your friends. You are all bound together by the shared experience of this winter, by the collective effort of preparing and consuming these preserved foods. You reach for a piece of dried something. You're not entirely sure what it was originally, but it's food. You chew slowly, the texture tough, the flavor indistinct but nourishing. It's not a meal to be enjoyed, but a task to be completed. And with each bite, you are reminded of the incredible adaptability of your ancestors, their willingness to confront the most extreme circumstances and find a way to survive. The act of eating in the Viking winter was a profound social statement. It was a declaration of resilience, a reaffirmation of community, and a testament to the enduring power of human connection in the face of overwhelming adversity. The seemingly simple act of sharing a meal became a complex tapestry of social interaction, status, and collective survival. The story of why Vikings ate strange and dangerous foods is a powerful testament to the human will to live. It's a tale of ingenuity born from necessity, of a people who pushed the boundaries of what was considered edible, all in the name of survival. Their diet, though shocking to modern sensibilities, allowed them to not only endure but to thrive in one of the most challenging environments on Earth. The relentless cold and the monotonous diet of preserved foods take their toll, even on the hardy Viking body. You feel it in the subtle aches of your joints, the occasional weariness that lingers despite a full night's sleep, and the persistent craving for something fresh, something green. This chapter explores the health challenges faced by Vikings during winter and the remarkable ways their bodies and knowledge adapted to survive on a diet that would send a modern nutritionist into a panic. You close your eyes, the warmth of the Longhouse fire a gentle embrace. You are full, not with indulgence, but with the quiet satisfaction of having faced the winter's hunger and found a way to overcome it. The tastes and textures of these strange foods linger on your tongue, a testament to the ingenuity and resilience of your ancestors. You drift off to sleep, knowing that the Viking spirit, fueled by desperation's delicacies, continues to endure. Imagine the subtle signs of winter's grip on your physical well-being. The lack of sunlight, for instance, means less vitamin D, a crucial nutrient for bone health and immune function. While you don't understand the science, you feel the difference, a slight dullness in your mood. Perhaps a greater susceptibility to the sniffles that inevitably circulate through the close confines of the longhouse. You might think, I could really use some sunshine and a multivitamin. But alas, neither is on the menu. The air in the longhouse, usually a comforting blend of wood smoke and the faint, familiar scent of preserved fish, now carries a sharper, more unsettling tang. It's the subtle, almost imperceptible aroma of fermentation, but not the kind that promises a safe, if pungent, meal. This is the scent of risk, of a delicate balance between transformation and outright spoilage. You're about to delve into the truly perilous art of fermentation, where a single misstep could turn a life-saving food into a deadly poison. A common historical fact is that scurvy, caused by a severe deficiency of vitamin C, was a significant threat to populations, especially during long winters or voyages where fresh fruits and vegetables were unavailable. While the Viking diet of preserved meats and fish was rich in protein and fat, it often lacked the fresh plant matter necessary to prevent this debilitating disease. The symptoms, fatigue, swollen gums, joint pain, and eventually death would have been a terrifying reality. Imagine the process not as a controlled scientific experiment, but as an intuitive dance with invisible forces. The Vikings, without microscopes or understanding of bacteria, relied on generations of accumulated knowledge, passed down through observation and bitter experience. They knew that certain conditions, temperature, salt, exclusion of air, would encourage the good kind of decay, turning raw ingredients into something stable and digestible. But they also knew that the line was incredibly fine, and crossing it meant illness. Or worse, you might think. I'll just stick to my sourdough starter, thanks. And you'd be wise to do so. For a unique detail, did you know that some historians believe the Vikings may have unknowingly combated scurvy through the consumption of certain less preserved or quickly consumed animal organs? For instance, fresh liver from a recently hunted animal, or even the adrenal glands, are surprisingly rich in vitamin C. While not a long-term solution, these opportunistic sources could have provided crucial, albeit sporadic, boosts of the vital nutrient. Imagine the desperate delight of a fresh liver, knowing it might keep the dreaded scurvy at bay. It's like finding a hidden packet of emergency vitamins in a very unexpected place. A common historical fact is that fermentation was a crucial preservation method for grains and beverages. Not just fish. Barley and oats were often used to brew ale, a staple drink that provided calories and some nutrients. And the fermentation process itself helped to purify the water. This controlled fermentation, while less overtly dangerous than some other food preparations, still required careful management to prevent the growth of harmful molds or bacteria. It was a daily act of microbial management, without knowing what microbes even were. Academically, historians still debate the precise prevalence and impact of specific deficiency diseases, like scurvy, within different Viking communities. While skeletal remains can show signs of chronic malnutrition, it's challenging to pinpoint the exact cause or the extent to which it affected the general population versus specific groups, i.e., those on long voyages. Was scurvy a constant, widespread threat, or more of an occasional, localized problem? You can almost hear the academic arguments. The bone lesions indicate chronic deficiency. Yes, but the overall health of the population seems robust. It's a debate about the hidden costs of survival. For a unique detail, did you know that some Viking communities might have used specific types of natural starter cultures for their fermentation processes? Even unknowingly, this could involve adding a small portion of a previously successful batch of fermented food, like a bit of old fermented fish, or a handful of grain from a successful ale brew to a new batch. This would introduce the desired beneficial bacteria, guiding the fermentation process and increasing the chances of a safe outcome. Imagine a Viking elder carefully adding a spoonful of magic to a new barrel, hoping the invisible spirits within would do their work. It's like a very ancient, very risky form of probiotic. Beyond scurvy, the sheer monotony of the winter diet could lead to other issues. While the preserved foods were calorically dense, They lacked the variety and fresh enzymes found in a summer diet. Digestive issues, from a constipation to general discomfort, would have been common. Your body, accustomed to the seasonal fluctuations of fresh food, now had to process the same tough, salty, and often fermented fare day after day. It was a test of your digestive fortitude. Academically, historians still debate the precise level of intentionality and scientific understanding behind Viking fermentation practices. While it's clear they had effective methods, was their knowledge purely empirical, based on what worked and what didn't? Or did they possess a more sophisticated, albeit unwritten, understanding of the underlying biological processes? Was it a series of happy accidents, or a carefully refined craft? You can almost hear the academic arguments. They were simply following tradition. No, they were proto-scientists, experimenting with their environment. It's a debate that ferments slowly, like a good batch of mead. You remember the elder women, with their deep knowledge of herbs and remedies, preparing infusions from dried berries or bark, hoping to alleviate common ailments. They might offer you a bitter tea made from willow bark for aches and pains, or a concoction of dried nettles for digestive woes. These were not cures, but attempts to ease the discomfort, to help the body cope with the stresses of winter. Their wisdom, passed down through generations, was as vital as the preserved food itself. The most notorious example of dangerous fermentation is, of course, hakarl, the fermented shark. You remember its pungent aroma, but the danger lies in its fresh state. Greenland sharks and other cartilaginous fish contain high levels of urea and trimethylamine oxide in their flesh, which are toxic if consumed fresh. The Vikings learned that burying the shark meat in shallow pits, often covered with gravel and stones, and allowing it to ferment for several months, followed by a lengthy drying period, would break down these toxins. This was a true leap of faith, a culinary gamble where the stakes were life itself. You recall the stories of those who didn't follow the rules, who rushed the process, or who consumed shark meat that hadn't been properly cured. The symptoms were grim, intense nausea, vomiting, dizziness, and a profound sense of intoxication, sometimes leading to death. It was a stark reminder that nature, even when offering sustenance, demanded respect and adherence to its hidden laws. You can almost hear a Viking saying, "I told you not to rush the shark. Now you're seeing Odin early." Beyond the dramatic example of shark, other forms of fermentation carried risks. If grains or berries were stored improperly, allowing unwanted molds or bacteria to grow, they could produce mycotoxins or other harmful compounds. The Vikings would have had to rely on their senses, smell, sight, and even touch to determine if a batch of food was safe. A strange discoloration, an unusually foul odor, or an odd texture would be warning signs, often leading to the painful decision to discard precious provisions. You think about the physical demands of Viking life, even in winter. Chopping wood, tending livestock, mending tools, and maintaining the longhouse all required significant physical exertion. The preserved diet, though often unappetizing, provided the raw energy needed for these tasks. It was a testament to the efficiency of their food preservation methods that they could sustain such physically demanding lives on what was essentially a survival diet. You might joke. My ancestors were basically eating protein bars and doing CrossFit all winter, and you wouldn't be far off. You think about the constant vigilance required. Every barrel, every storage pit, every hanging bag of dried berries was a potential source of danger. The women and men of the Longhouse would regularly inspect their stores, their experienced eyes scanning for any signs of spoilage. It was a silent, ongoing battle against the invisible enemies of decay, a battle that had to be won every day. The psychological impact of the long, dark winter and the monotonous diet shouldn't be underestimated. The lack of fresh food, the endless gray skies, and the constant struggle for warmth could lead to a sense of weariness, a longing for the vibrant colors and flavors of spring. The communal meals, the storytelling, and the shared labor helped to combat this, providing mental and emotional sustenance alongside the physical. The psychological burden of this risk must have been immense. Every meal carried a subtle undertone of uncertainty. Was this batch safe? Had it been prepared correctly? This constant low-level anxiety, coupled with the gnawing hunger, must have been a profound test of their mental fortitude. Yet they persevered. driven by the fundamental need to survive. Your body, however, was remarkably adaptive. Over generations, Vikings developed a resilience to the harsh conditions and the unique diet. Their strong constitutions, honed by a life of physical labor and exposure to the elements, allowed them to tolerate foods that would make a modern person ill. Their gut microbiomes, shaped by centuries of consuming fermented foods, were likely robust and efficient at extracting nutrients from their limited diet. The knowledge of safe fermentation was a closely guarded secret, passed down within families and communities. It was a form of intellectual property, a vital skill that ensured the survival of the group. Mistakes were learned from, often at great cost, and the successful techniques were meticulously replicated and taught to the next generation. This was their science, their medicine, their culinary art, all rolled into one. You feel a quiet strength in your own body, a deep-seated resilience that comes from living in harmony with the cycles of nature. You've learned to appreciate the subtle flavors of dried fish, the comforting warmth of oat porridge, the tangy bite of aged cheese. These aren't just foods, they are the building blocks of your endurance, the silent partners in your survival. As the winter winds continue to howl outside, you find a strange appreciation for this perilous art. It highlights the incredible resilience and ingenuity of your ancestors, their willingness to push boundaries and take risks in the face of overwhelming odds. They didn't have the luxury of choice, they had the necessity of survival, and they met it with courage and cunning. The knowledge of which foods provided what benefits, even without a scientific understanding of vitamins and minerals, was crucial. They knew that certain foods, like fish liver, were particularly fortifying, or that berries, even dried, helped to keep them healthy. This empirical knowledge, passed down through generations, was a form of ancient nutritional science. Born of observation and necessity, you close your eyes. The warmth of the longhouse fire a comforting presence. You are nourished by foods that, in another context, might be deadly. But here, in the heart of the Viking winter, they are life itself. You drift off to sleep, knowing that the ancient art of fermentation, in all its dangerous glory, has seen you through another day. As the winter begins its slow retreat, you feel a subtle shift in the air, a faint promise of the coming spring. Your body, though tired, has endured. The preserved foods, those nasty, wonderful, life-sustaining provisions, have done their job. You are a testament to the Viking spirit of adaptation, a living example of how human ingenuity can overcome even the most formidable challenges. The Longhouse, a haven against the biting wind and perpetual twilight, is alive with the subtle sounds of winter survival. You've explored the perilous world of fermentation, but now your attention turns to another grim necessity, the consumption of every conceivable part of an animal. In the Viking world, waste was not an option. Every ounce of a hunted or slaughtered beast was a precious commodity, transformed from raw flesh into vital sustenance through ingenuity and sheer determination. This is the story of blood, guts, and the unwavering gumption required to thrive on a nose-to-tail diet. You close your eyes. The warmth of the longhouse fire a gentle comfort. You have faced the winter, and you have survived, thanks to the resilience of your body and the ancient wisdom of your people. You drift off to sleep, knowing that the long, dark season is drawing to a close, and the promise of fresh food and renewed vitality is just on the horizon. Imagine the autumn slaughter, a brutal but essential ritual that ensured survival through the lean months. The air would be thick with the scent of blood and fear, but also of purpose. Every animal, from the largest ox to the smallest pig, was treated with reverence, its sacrifice understood as a gift of life. And from that sacrifice, nothing was discarded. You'd see the butchers, their hands stained, meticulously separating not just the prime cuts of meat, but every organ, every bone, every drop of blood. You might think, this is not for the faint of heart. And you'd be absolutely right. The long, dark winter stretches on, a seemingly endless expanse of gray skies and biting winds. You've explored the physical toll of this harsh season and the extreme foods required for survival. But now, let's delve into the less visible, yet equally profound, challenge the psychological impact of a monotonous diet and the relentless isolation of winter. This chapter is about mind over monotony, and how the Vikings coped with the mental strain of their strange and dangerous foodways. A common historical fact is that the Vikings practiced a highly efficient form of resource utilization, especially concerning animal products. Beyond the meat, hides were used for clothing, shelter, and sails. Bones were fashioned into tools, combs, and ornaments, and even hooves and horns found practical applications. This holistic approach to animal husbandry and hunting meant that their survival was deeply intertwined with their ability to extract maximum value from every creature. It was the ultimate recycling program, driven by necessity. Imagine the sheer repetition. Day after day, week after week, the same flavors, the same textures, the salty tang of dried fish, the dense chew of smoked meat, the earthy blandness of oat porridge. Your modern palate, accustomed to a dizzying array of choices and novel culinary experiences, would scream in protest. But for a Viking, this monotony was a given, a fundamental aspect of their winter reality. The craving for something fresh, something green, something vibrant, would become a persistent, almost maddening ache. You might think, I'd go crazy without my weekly pizza night. And honestly, you probably would. For a unique detail, did you know that the Viking diet often included sursadir hrutspungur, or pickled ram testicles, particularly in Iceland? While this might sound like a modern culinary dare, these organs, rich in nutrients, were a viable food source when other options were scarce. They would be pressed, cured in whey, and then stored, providing a protein and fat boost. Imagine the courage required to not just eat, but to prepare such a dish, knowing it was a testament to your ancestors' willingness to consume anything that offered sustenance. It's like a very, very niche delicacy, with a truly unforgettable backstory. A common historical fact is that long periods of dietary monotony can lead to psychological distress, including reduced appetite, irritability, and even depression. While the Vikings didn't have a clinical understanding of these conditions, they would have experienced the effects. The lack of sensory stimulation from varied foods, combined with the limited social interaction outside the longhouse, could contribute to a pervasive sense of weariness and ennui. Academically, historians still debate the extent to which the consumption of certain animal organs was purely driven by caloric and nutritional necessity versus having deeper ritualistic or symbolic meanings. While the pragmatic need for nutrients is clear, did consuming the heart of a powerful animal, for instance, also imbue the eater with its strength or courage? Was it solely about survival, or did it carry a spiritual weight? You can almost hear the academic arguments, it's pure protein and iron. No, it's a symbolic connection to the animal's spirit. It's a debate that gets right to the heart of the matter. For a unique detail, did you know that storytelling and communal singing played a crucial role in mitigating the psychological impact of winter and its monotonous diet? During the long evenings in the longhouse, sagas would be recited, poems composed, and songs sung. These oral traditions provided mental stimulation, entertainment, and a vital connection to their history and shared identity, distracting from the grim realities of their diet. Imagine a chieftain recounting epic tales while everyone gnawed on dried fish, making the bland food a little more palatable with the power of imagination. It's like a very, very old-school podcast, but with live performance and less buffering. The blood, often drained into large wooden bowls, was a precious liquid. It wouldn't be wasted. You'd see it mixed with barley flour to create blood puddings or blood pancakes, cooked over the fire. These dense, dark creations were packed with iron and protein, providing a vital energy boost during the long, dark winter. The taste was rich, earthy, and undeniably metallic, a flavor that spoke of life itself. You remember the warmth spreading through your body after a bowl of blood pudding, a primal satisfaction. Academically, historians still debate the precise mechanisms by which the Vikings maintained mental resilience in such challenging conditions. Was it primarily due to their strong communal bonds and shared cultural practices? Or did their physically demanding lifestyle and stoic worldview also play a significant role? How did they avoid widespread despair when facing such constant hardship? You can almost hear the academic arguments. It was the power of community and shared purpose. No, it was simply a matter of natural selection. Those who couldn't cope didn't survive. It's a debate about the strength of the human spirit. Internal organs were equally valued. The liver, kidneys, and heart were often eaten fresh immediately after a kill, a rare treat of tender, nutrient-rich meat. Any excess would be lightly salted or smoked for short-term storage. The brain, too, was consumed, often boiled or roasted, providing valuable fats. These organs, often overlooked in modern diets, were powerhouses of vitamins and minerals, crucial for preventing deficiency diseases that could cripple a community during winter. The lack of control over their food environment was another psychological challenge. You couldn't simply decide you wanted something different. Your diet was dictated by the stores, by what had been successfully preserved. This absence of choice, so alien to modern sensibilities, would have been a constant reminder of your vulnerability to the elements. Every meal was a surrender to necessity, a humbling experience that reinforced your place within the natural order. You recall the careful preparation of intestines, meticulously cleaned and then often used as casings for sausages or puddings, ensuring that even the most unappealing parts of the animal found a purpose. The stomach lining itself could be cleaned and used as a vessel for cooking or storage. This commitment to utilizing every single part of the animal was not just about efficiency, it was a profound respect for the life that had been given. You recall the quiet moments when a child might refuse a piece of particularly tough stockfish, only to be met with a stern but understanding glance from an elder. There was no room for pickiness, no luxury of complaint. The lesson was clear: you eat what you have, or you don't eat at all. This discipline, though harsh, instilled a deep appreciation for every morsel, a gratitude born from the knowledge of true hunger. Even the bones were not discarded. After the meat was stripped, bones would be boiled down for hours, sometimes days, to extract every last bit of marrow and fat, creating a rich, nourishing broth. This bone broth, packed with collagen and minerals, was a comforting and fortifying drink, especially for the sick or elderly. The remaining bones would then be cracked open to extract the marrow, a fatty, nutrient-dense delicacy. You remember the satisfying crack of a bone, the rich, creamy marrow, a rare indulgence. The communal nature of Viking life, however, provided a powerful antidote to the psychological toll. Meals were shared, stories were told, and laughter, even in the darkest days, would echo through the longhouse. This shared experience of hardship, this collective endurance, fostered a profound sense of solidarity. You were not alone in your struggle. Everyone around you was facing the same challenges, eating the same foods, and dreaming of the same spring. This shared burden made it lighter. You think about the sheer mental fortitude required to consume such a diet. It wasn't always pleasant. The textures could be challenging, the flavors intense and unfamiliar to a modern palate. Yet, the Vikings embraced it. Understanding that this was the price of survival, their resilience wasn't just physical, it was a profound mental toughness, a willingness to overcome revulsion for the sake of life. You think about the simple pleasures that became magnified during winter. The warmth of the fire, the comfort of a full belly even if filled with monotonous food, the rare taste of something slightly different. Perhaps a small piece of traded honey or a handful of dried berries saved for a special occasion. These small moments of sensory delight would have been cherished, providing brief but potent bursts of joy that helped to break the psychological grip of monotony. The cold itself was a constant drain on your body's energy. Maintaining core body temperature required a significant caloric intake, meaning that even a full belly of preserved food was quickly metabolized to generate warmth. This constant battle against hypothermia meant that every meal was a strategic maneuver, designed to provide the maximum amount of energy to keep your internal furnace burning. You'd feel the warmth spread through your limbs after a hot bowl of porridge, a temporary victory against the encroaching chill. The very act of preparing the food, even the repetitive tasks of grinding grain or rehydrating fish, could become a meditative practice. The rhythmic movements, the focus on the task at hand, could offer a sense of control and purpose in a world where so much was beyond their command. It was a way of channeling anxiety into productive labor, a silent ritual of resilience. The knowledge of how to prepare these diverse animal parts safely and effectively was a cornerstone of Viking domestic life, passed down from generation to generation. Your grandmother would teach you how to properly clean intestines, how long to boil bones for broth, and the best ways to preserve blood. This was practical, hands-on learning, essential for the continuation of your family and community. The dreams of spring, of fresh greens, of plump game, and of the sun's return were also a powerful psychological tool. These were not just idle fantasies, they were a collective hope, a shared vision of a future beyond the present hardship. These dreams fueled their endurance, providing a mental anchor to pull them through the darkest days. You'd find yourself drifting off to sleep, conjuring images of vibrant green fields and the scent of wildflowers, a mental escape from the reality of the longhouse. As the winter winds continue their mournful song, you find a strange sense of pride in this comprehensive approach to food. It speaks volumes about the Vikings' deep connection to their environment, their understanding that life was a cycle of consumption and renewal, and that every part of the natural world held potential for sustenance. They were not wasteful, they were survivors, and their diet reflected that unwavering determination. As the long, dark winter slowly begins to recede, you feel a subtle shift in your own spirit. The weariness is still there, but it's tempered by a profound sense of accomplishment. You have endured. You have faced the psychological battle of monotony and scarcity, and you have emerged perhaps not unscathed, but certainly stronger. The strange and dangerous foods, the endless gray days, the constant struggle, these have forged a mental fortitude that will serve you well in the seasons to come. You close your eyes, the warmth of the longhouse fire a comforting presence. You are nourished by the full bounty of the animal world, from muscle to marrow, from blood to bone. You drift off to sleep, knowing that the Viking spirit, fueled by every last bit of life, continues to endure through the long, dark winter. You close your eyes, the warmth of the longhouse fire a gentle comfort. You are sustained not just by the calories, but by the resilience of your mind, by the shared spirit of your community, and by the enduring hope of spring. You drift off to sleep, knowing that the Viking mind, as much as its body, was a master of survival. Enduring the long, dark season with unwavering spirit, the longhouse, though a haven against the biting wind and perpetual twilight, still holds the faint, earthy scent of the wild. You've explored the animal-based extremes of the Viking diet, but now your attention shifts to another vital, yet often perilous source of sustenance, the plants. In a world where cultivated crops were limited and fresh produce vanished with the first frost, the Vikings turned to the forests, marshes, and coastlines, foraging for berries, roots, and even fungi. This is the story of foraging the perilous wild, a life-or-death gamble where knowledge was the ultimate survival tool. The long, dark winter is finally beginning its slow, hesitant retreat. You feel a subtle shift in the air, a faint promise of the coming spring. But the lessons of survival etched into your very being will endure long after the last snow melts. You've journeyed through the Viking winter, understanding the ingenuity, the resilience, and the sheer grit required to survive on a diet of strange and dangerous foods. Now, let's reflect on the enduring legacy of these ancient foodways, how their echoes resonate even in our modern world, and the silent testament they offer to human adaptability. Imagine the fleeting days of late summer and early autumn, when the land still offered its bounty. You'd venture out with your elders, their eyes sharp and discerning, teaching you the silent language of the forest. Every plant, every patch of moss, every cluster of berries held a secret, a potential meal, or a deadly poison. This wasn't a leisurely stroll, it was a meticulous hunt, a careful assessment of risk and reward. You might think, I'd just stick to the berries I know. But the Vikings often didn't have that luxury. Imagine looking back from the vantage point of spring, the fields slowly emerging from their icy slumber, a faint green blush appearing on the trees. The hunger for fresh food is almost a physical ache, a craving for the vibrant tastes and textures that have been absent for so long. But the memory of the preserved foods, the fermented shark, the blood puddings, the bark bread, the pickled organs, the dried seaweed, it's not one of revulsion, but of profound gratitude. These were the anchors that held you fast through the storm, the silent heroes of your winter tale, even if they made your stomach churn. A common historical fact is that while grains like barley and oats were cultivated staples, wild plants played a crucial supplementary role in the Viking diet, especially for providing vitamins and minerals that were scarce in preserved animal products. Berries, in particular, were a vital source of vitamin C, helping to prevent scurvy during the long, dark winters. This reliance on wild edibles highlights their deep ecological knowledge and adaptability. A common historical fact is that many of the food preservation techniques developed by the Vikings and other ancient cultures, drying, salting, smoking, and fermentation, are still used today, albeit with modern refinements and often for gourmet purposes. Think of charcuterie, aged cheeses, and fermented vegetables like sauerkraut or kimchi. While our refrigerators and freezers have made these methods less essential for daily survival, the fundamental principles remain a testament to the timeless effectiveness of these ancient practices. You might think, so my fancy fermented kombucha is basically Viking survival food. Yes, it is, just with a much nicer aroma. For a unique detail, did you know that certain types of seaweed were regularly harvested and consumed by Vikings, especially in coastal areas? Species like dulse or kelp provided not only essential minerals and vitamins, but also some bulk to their otherwise dense diet. They could be dried and stored, or even eaten fresh if gathered from the icy shores. Imagine chewing on a salty, chewy strip of dried seaweed, a taste of the ocean that provided unexpected nutrients. It's like a very, very ancient and less processed version of a seaweed snack, but probably less delicious. For a unique detail, did you know that the traditional Icelandic Thoramatur Thorblot food, a collection of cured and prepared meats and fish, including hakarl fermented shark, svid singed sheep's head, and hrutspungar pickled ram testicles, is a direct culinary homage to the Viking-era diet. This annual midwinter feast is a celebration of resilience, a deliberate embrace of the very foods that allowed their ancestors to survive. Imagine a modern festival dedicated to eating the most challenging foods of your heritage. It's like a very, very authentic historical reenactment. But on your dinner plate, academically, historians still debate the precise extent to which certain wild fungi were intentionally consumed by Vikings, beyond accidental ingestion. While some edible mushrooms grow in Nordic regions, the risk of misidentification and poisoning was high. Was there a systematic knowledge of edible fungi, or were they primarily an opportunistic, high-risk food source for the truly desperate? You can almost hear the academic arguments. The archaeological evidence for mushroom consumption is ambiguous. Yes, but the need for calories would have driven them to take risks. It's a debate that leaves a lingering, earthy question. Academically, historians still debate the precise balance between cultural tradition and pure necessity in the continuation of some of these strange foodways into later periods, and even modern times. While the initial impetus was survival, did certain foods, once essential, become cherished delicacies through generations of consumption, evolving beyond their desperate origins? Was it purely a matter of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it? Or did a genuine appreciation for their unique flavors develop? You can almost hear the academic arguments. It's a cultural artifact, a symbol of identity. No, it's just what they got used to eating. It's a debate with a surprisingly complex flavor profile. The danger in foraging was ever present. A misidentified berry, a poisonous root mistaken for an edible one, could lead to agonizing illness or death. You learn from a young age the distinct characteristics of each plant, the shape of its leaves, the color of its flowers if seen in summer, the texture of its bark, and crucially, the specific locations where safe edibles could be found. This knowledge was literally life-saving, passed down through oral tradition, reinforced by cautionary tales of those who made fatal errors. The legacy of Viking foodways isn't just about the specific dishes, it's about the profound lessons they offer. It's a testament to human adaptability, to our innate ability to find solutions in the face of overwhelming adversity. It speaks to the power of ingenuity, of turning limitations into opportunities, and of the deep connection between survival and resourcefulness. They didn't have the luxury of convenience, but they had the wisdom of generations and the fierce will to live. You recall the story of a distant relative, a young man who ventured too far into the forest in late winter, desperate for food, and consumed a root that was later identified as poisonous. His agonizing death served as a grim reminder to the entire community of the perils of the wild. It was a lesson etched in sorrow, reinforcing the importance of relying on the wisdom of elders. You remember the collective effort, the shared labor of preparing for winter, the communal meals that bound your ancestors together. This spirit of cooperation, born from the shared struggle, was as vital as any preserved food. It taught them that true strength lay not just in individual prowess, but in the collective resilience of the community. This enduring lesson of solidarity resonates even today. Beyond immediate consumption, the Vikings employed various methods to preserve foraged plants. Berries, as mentioned, were often dried in the sun or by the hearth, becoming shriveled but nutrient-dense morsels. Some might have been pounded into a paste and mixed with fat or honey for longer storage. Roots, if suitable, could be stored in cool, dry underground pits, much like their cultivated counterparts, maintaining their freshness for a surprising period. The very act of consuming these challenging foods day after day instilled a deep appreciation for sustenance and a profound understanding of the cycles of nature. There was no waste, no casual disregard for resources. Every part of every animal, every foraged plant, every kernel of grain was valued. This deep respect for food, born of scarcity, is a powerful counterpoint to the abundance and wastefulness of much of modern society. You might think, my ancestors would be appalled by my food waste, and you'd be absolutely right. You think about the sheer resilience required to forage in the harsh Nordic landscape. Even in summer, the growing season was short, and the bounty often sparse. In winter, digging through frozen ground for roots or searching for hardy, frost-resistant berries would have been an act of profound determination. It was a constant negotiation with nature, pushing its limits to extract every possible calorie. The knowledge of these foodways wasn't found in books, it was a living tradition, passed down through oral histories, through hands-on teaching, through the very act of living and surviving. It was a testament to the power of empirical knowledge, refined over centuries of trial and error, ensuring the continuation of their people. The psychological impact of relying on foraging for survival was significant. It fostered a deep connection to the land, an intimate understanding of its rhythms and its hidden gifts. But it also instilled a constant sense of vigilance, a low-level anxiety about finding enough, about not making a fatal mistake. It was a dance between hope and fear, played out in the silent depths of the forest. As the days grow longer and the sun's warmth finally begins to thaw the frozen earth, you feel a renewed sense of vitality. The cravings for fresh greens and succulent game intensify, a biological imperative signaling the end of the lean season. But you also carry with you the quiet confidence that comes from having endured. You have faced the winter, and you have survived, thanks to the strange, dangerous, and utterly essential foods of your ancestors. The knowledge of which plants had medicinal properties was also intertwined with foraging. Certain herbs and berries were known to alleviate ailments, to soothe digestive issues, or to act as mild painkillers. This holistic approach meant that the forest was not just a larder, but also a pharmacy, offering remedies for the inevitable illnesses of winter. The story of why Vikings ate strange and dangerous foods is more than just a historical curiosity. It's a powerful reminder of human ingenuity and resilience. It shows us that even in the most challenging environments, with limited technology, our ancestors found ways not just to exist, but to build thriving societies. Their methods, born of necessity, forged a path for future generations, leaving a legacy of adaptability that continues to inspire. As the winter winds continue their mournful song, you find a deep appreciation for the silent strength of the plant world and the wisdom of those who knew how to harness it. It speaks volumes about the Vikings' ability to adapt, to learn from their environment, and to extract sustenance from even the most unyielding landscapes. They were not just warriors, they were astute naturalists. Their lives depended on their intimate knowledge of the wild. You close your eyes, the image of the longhouse fading, replaced by the gentle hum of your own world, the faint scent of ancient smoke, salt, and perhaps a hint of fermented something, lingers, a whisper from the past. You are connected to those who came before you, their struggles and triumphs echoing in the quiet moments of your own life. You close your eyes, the warmth of the longhouse fire a comforting presence. You are nourished by the wild bounty of the earth, gathered and preserved by ancient hands. You drift off to sleep, knowing that the perilous art of foraging, in all its life-sustaining wisdom, has seen you through another day.